I'm Captain Xavier, and for those of you that watch my Friday fan mail videos, you'll know I was recently sent a very rare blaster in box in amazing condition, and it was in fact a trade. What they asked for in trade for that was a modified Strife. So today I'm going to be modifying that Strife. They asked for a simple 2S build. I will be adding some additional 3D printed gizmos to go on it just because I happen to have the files, and it'll make it a little bit nicer. But this video is not going to be about the build. If you want to know how to build this exact build, I have a video on it. It's my Strife with every step included. Shows every step that I do. But I'm just going to be doing this while I tell a story because I want to have something to distract me while I'm doing it. So the story that I'm going to be telling is of the Mutation Madness Hardcore 3 event that I recently attended in Missouri? Yes, Missouri, which was a fabulous event. It was a combination, well, it was an HVZ, but it was a slightly modified HVZ. They had some mechanics that you don't see in your regular HVZs that made it much more interesting. And they were able to really do that because of the location, which the location was really what made this event so special. Is, as the name would suggest, it takes place in a mall after hours. And the things that allowed them to do really was what made the event, like I said, so much more special. You didn't have to worry about weather. You didn't have to worry about parking, because there's lots of parking at a mall. The inside was entirely covered. And as a result of it was large enough for the number of people they had. Apparently this particular event had more than double than their previous record. I think they had 144 people, and previously they'd had like 65 or something. I don't know the exact numbers, but they had a good turnout. But there was still plenty of room. The event did not feel crowded at any point. Their nominal cap that they set was 200. They didn't quite reach that. I think 200 would be about the limit of that location. There were some issues where the number of people was a problem, but it wasn't a matter of size, it was a matter of logistics. And they're well aware of the issue that having twice the people they had before created. The mechanic that made this game so much different than previous ones was that there was sort of a level system. You gained experience, and it allowed you to unlock either equipment or special abilities, and that went for both zombies and for humans. So both humans and zombies were working to level up throughout the game. Humans were trying to unlock some special abilities, but mostly equipment, whereas zombies were gaining special abilities. So there very rapidly were a lot of super zombies, which, again, given that it was a one-day event, and not a particularly long one. I think it was 6 hours. It went from like 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., which was grueling, yes. But it meant that the game had to be designed to be quick-paced. Things had to progress very quickly, or they would become boring and stagnant. Like either the humans would never get anywhere, or the zombies would never get anywhere. But they did an excellent job of balancing the game as they went. They recognized that, oh, this is an issue. This zombie respawn point is too close to an objective, and the humans are getting wiped out there. And that was the other thing that was so wonderful about the location, is because it was relatively small. I mean, it was a full-sized mall. It wasn't exactly tiny, but it wasn't, say, a full college campus where you have people, half a mile apart. It was small enough that they could a single person could blow a whistle. Everybody would hear the whistle and know that there's a game stoppage. And there was a simple location, like, okay, everyone back to the food court was the human staging location. There's going to be an announcement. And everyone would go there. It would take a couple of minutes at most for everyone to leave the play area and get to the staging area, and then they could explain, you know, we're making this change, or this has happened, or okay, we're moving on to stage 2, or whatever. And yeah, the location of the event is what made that possible, and it was really, really cool for them to be able to do things like that. There were, I think, 2 times during the game when they had to do a long game stop for reset or rebalance, or there were a couple of times when there was an injury. And it was very, very easy to get that message to everybody. You didn't have to rely on sketchy radios and word of mouth and half the people not getting the message and are still playing, and that didn't happen. That was really, really cool. The setup that they added to the event was also really, really cool. They brought in hundreds of cardboard boxes, big cardboard boxes, and used them to create barricades and structures, and because they had people, you know, everyone who was there was asked to help. It went up real quick. It was well explained what needed to be done, and it made for a much more versatile play area. Otherwise, a mall is fairly open, and trying to be a zombie in those hallways, there would have been no cover and nowhere to hide, and it wouldn't have been very fun. But they put in so many boxes that there was a lot of narrow points and funnelings and cover for zombies to jump out at you from, which was always terrifying. But it worked very, very well. Now, the other thing that they did in this one, and I understand that it was different in the previous games, that this was a new mechanic, everyone was arranged into squads. Now, you got to pick your squads. You weren't randomly assigned squads, and I appreciate that. You were put into squads, and you could only have 5 people in your squad. Now, you didn't have to be in a squad. You could have less than 5 people in your squad, but you couldn't have more than 5 people in a squad. Now, multiple squads could work together, but only one of you could complete an objective at a time. You couldn't complete the objective once and have it apply to both squads. Both squads would have to complete every objective. You also didn't have to try to complete objectives at all. It was perfectly allowed for you to ignore objectives and just go hunt zombies and have fun, which is more or less what I did. So they got us all together, and they figured out who the OZs were going to be. There were apparently some terrifying ones, a couple well-known, really good zombie players, and it's always neat when you have people that enjoy playing the zombie and are willing to start out, because you have to have zombies to play humans versus zombies. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of humans walking around a mall with Nerf blasters, and that's not nearly as fun. So we had our OZs, and we were given our objective. There were, I believe, 6 locations throughout the event, throughout the site, that were... There were structures, like I said, that they'd built using cardboard or PVC and various other materials. And inside them were locked crates that contained ball pit balls. And you needed to get a certain number of points worth of ball pit balls. There were numbers on the ball pit balls, so that, one ball might be worth 10 points, another might be worth 1, and you needed a certain number of each. And each bucket contained only 1 color, so you had to go to all 6. And as I said, they were locked. You had to find the clues that were on QR codes on cards around the area. You had to find them, scan them. It would give you the clues to be able to unlock it. And then you could get the MacGuffin out of it. It was specifically stated you were not allowed to circumvent the lock in any way. You could not try to break it. You could not try to get stuff out of it without unlocking it. You could not pick it. They are aware of the sort of shenanigans people like to get up to. Now, you had to play the puzzle. I mean, that's fair. They could have just as easily said, no, if you can get in, you can get in, and then people probably would have ended up breaking their totes, and that wouldn't have been cool. But the puzzles were apparently apparently you didn't need to, there were a certain number of clues per each, and I don't know if you had to find them all, but I know people were having trouble finding all of them, because most of them were like on the walls, but there were one that was on the underside of a piece of furniture, and apparently nobody was finding that one. We weren't actually looking for MacGuffin, so I can't tell you how hard or easy it actually was, because I didn't try. maybe I'd have found it, but I suspect I would have run into the same problem that everyone else did, that wouldn't have thought to look under the furniture, which is just sneaky and fantastic. We instead, I was already burnt out from a whole bunch of other events and a lot of other travel and did not want to have to think. And so I opted to not try for the puzzles and called for auxiliary who were willing to also not try for puzzles. If you really wanted to actually try to do the puzzle thing, then mine was not the squad for you, and that's all well and good. I did end up with 2 squads worth of volunteers. We had a full complement of 10, which was nice because that's a good number for me to be able to lead. We also were working with several allied squads, so there were people who they did want to work for the objectives. And so what we did is we simply helped them by covering the zombies. We screened the zombies, we engaged the zombies, we kept the zombies off of them so that they could work on objectives. And that worked very, very well. And it ended up having a side effect that I wasn't expecting. That somebody else who... They were auxiliary, they were wearing a patch, but they weren't in one of the auxiliary squads. But they pointed out something that I hadn't really connected, which is that... or we'll say they attributed the lack of human versus human action to us. One of the things that was made clear at the beginning of the game is there are not enough resources for everyone. So I said each team had to get, a certain number of points of each colored ball. Well, they did the math, and there were not enough points for all the human squads to get out. Some of us, no matter what, were not going to make it out. And so that was one of the things that I said early on is there isn't enough resources for everyone. We're not all getting out of here. My squad is going to make sure somebody gets out of here. And so there was a lot of concern early on that, well, what if a group of humans decides to just be a troll squad? Because the other mechanic that was very different from this HVZ from any other HVZ I've been in is they had what was essentially a kill confirmed mechanic. If you get tagged by a zombie, you are not immediately turned, you are instead wounded. Which means you have to take a knee, you can't move, you can't use your blaster, you're stuck. Until either a different zombie comes up and tags you, in that case, then you turn into a zombie, or a human medic comes up and heals you. There's also an item you could get, a med pack kits that would you could use on yourself to get unwounded. But that made it harder to get turned as long as you weren't all by yourself, or as long as your squad had a medic. Problem was, not everyone had a medic, because a medic was a special ability that humans could get, and not every squad opted to have one for various reasons, or their medic got killed, or what have you. It was possible to start as a medic, so everyone had the opportunity to have a medic in their squad. But your medic at level 1 wouldn't be able to use a blaster. They would only be able to use socks. That was part of the human leveling up mechanic, which I suppose I should explain. So, the leveling up. The way the leveling up worked was every time a zombie got tagged, they would drop a poker chip. And if you managed to collect 5 poker chips and return them to game ops, you could level up. And what leveling did was for every level you had another equipment slot, ability slot. I'm not really sure how you want to describe it. Both of those are decent explanations. But in order to carry more equipment or to have special class abilities, those things used up one of your slots. So if you were level 1, you had 1 slot. And something like a blaster that, a primed blaster, so a retaliator or a hammer shot or something like that. Nothing semi-automatic. A primed blaster that holds less than 10 rounds takes 1 slot. and so you could have one. Semi-automatic blasters with less than 10 rounds took up 2 slots. So it wasn't possible to carry a semi-automatic blaster like a Strife until you were level 2. And even then, yes, you could have the blaster, but you could only have 10-round magazines, and you couldn't have anything like a vest that carried them. A vest took an equipment slot. So if you wanted a semi-automatic Strife with high capacity, you needed, 3 or 4 levels in order to unlock all of that. And it meant that the equipment that the humans had was limited at the start of the game. Now, there's an infinite number of zombies, and they respawned real quick, and so it wasn't hard to get lots of poker chips as long as you were engaging the zombies. But you did then have to get all the way back to game ops to check in. And this was where the kind of the bottleneck in gameplay occurred. There were so many people that were getting so many poker chips and having to go back to level up, and there was only one level up station, which was a person with a laptop and a person checking people in. And that was the problem. As previously, I imagine when there were 60 people, that was enough. But when you doubled the number of people, only having the one station suddenly became the one real bottleneck to gameplay. As there was always a long line of people wanting to level up. And that's a simple logistic matter of next time they need to have, 2 computers. Maybe 3 computers, maybe 4, however many they can get. And the problem then, of course, is you need volunteers to run it, and, who wants to be the volunteer? You want to play the game, and the usual logistic problems that you run into with any event. That is just inherent to people. I don't consider that a failing of the event. It's just something that happened. So, I've completely lost track of where I was at this point. Humans level up that way. Zombies level up by killing a human. Every time a zombie kills a human, they level up. Now you recall, first zombie tags you, you're wounded. Second zombie tags you, you are actually turned. The zombie those 2 zombies are then supposed to take that human to game ops to record that there's been a tag and to record who got the tag. Now, one of those 2 zombies gets a full point, the other one gets a half a point for the assist. And they get to choose between them who gets the kill and who gets the assist. It's not necessarily who did the first tag, who did the second tag, it's how they choose. And so, 2 assists and you get a level up. And they kept track of all of that. Who had the most assists, who had the most tags. And so that they could give out awards for the most effective zombie or the most, the MVP zombie and stuff like that, based on statistics, which was really, really cool. So yeah, the zombies are leveling up, and every time they kill a human, or once they get a full point, they level up, 2 assists or 1 kill, and then they got to unlock special abilities. And the more kills you had, the better abilities you could have, or the more abilities you could have. It was similar to the humans in that there was more equipment or more abilities. It was really cool. They had a good variety of super zombies. It was all really easy to tell what kind of a super zombie there was. You weren't trying to, work out in the middle of the game, okay, well, how does this work? How does that work? No, it's fairly obvious how it worked. And all of the rules were made very clear ahead of time, and you were very much expected to have read them and understood them, because they didn't want to have to constantly stop gameplay to explain rules. And that's one thing that they did so beautifully in this game. Despite the complexity was almost all back-end stuff. How you got the equipment that you got, what the equipment did, was all fairly straightforward. And so there wasn't a lot of, like I said, game stoppage to explain rules. No, it was, if a human shoots a zombie, that zombie is stunned. If a zombie hits a human with a thing, that human has been hit. What you had to hit with and what equipment you had, that was what was complicated. The whole leveling up system was somewhat complicated, but that was all back-end stuff. That wasn't stuff that took place on the field. And so you didn't have to worry about getting confused about abilities or rules or things like that. It was very, very well written in that sense. And I really, really appreciate that and respect the way they set that up, because it made for an interesting game, a challenging game, a new style of gameplay, but you didn't constantly have to, you know, stop and go, pause, time out, what does that ability do? How did you do that? What's going on? Who actually got that? Now, there wasn't any of that, and I loved it. So, off we went. Off we went to acquire MacGuffins, or rather to help other people acquire MacGuffins. There were 2 auxiliary squads. I cannot remember the name of one of them, and I should, because, you know, we worked with them. But the one I do remember was the Zombie Corps of Engineers, which was an auxiliary squad out of GCC, I believe, or at least it was led by someone out of GCC, Spike. And we agreed, we're going to do our best to make sure that you guys complete the primary mission. And so that's what we did. We went up and we would block off areas of the mall where there were MacGuffins so the zombies couldn't get through easily, though the thing was, if you stunned a zombie, they were free to go to any zombie respawn point they wanted. And so we had our battle line, and the active zombies couldn't get through us. But once we stunned, they could just walk through and go to a spawn point that was further behind us. But we were able to limit the numbers, and then they were able to hold the zombies at the respawn point. And spawn camping was a very, very much an allowed and encouraged thing, as it was kind of the only way to survive. Alright, give me a second. I gotta make some noise. Right, that should be all of the drumming. So, where was I? I have no idea. Discussing the leveling system. So yeah, zombies got special abilities, humans got equipment. There were also 2 specialty classes for humans. There were medics and engineers. Medics, as the name would suggest, healed people. So if you found a human in the wounded state, a medic could count to... if a medic touched them and counted to 10, they could get back up again. That was a level 1 medic, which level 1 medic took one of your slots, your equipment slots. So you could start as a level 1 medic, but then you couldn't have a blaster, you could just have socks. But your squad would have a medic. 1 medic per squad. You could also only have 1 engineer per squad. There was also, I think, an armored option that took slots and gave you, took more tags to take you out. And you also eventually got auto heal. Medics also got auto heal. At level 2, medics auto healed after 30 seconds, which is a long time, but it's better than nothing. It meant if your medic got tagged, you could defend your medic, and as long as you could hold for 30 seconds, your medic would get back up. At 3rd level, medic, if a medic was touching another human, that human was impervious, was immortal, could not be harmed. But the medic could. So, you know, there was that. Engineers got the ability to move or disassemble the cover, all the cardboard boxes that had been set up. They could take certain ones down. They couldn't take all of them down, but they could take the simple ones down. And early in the game, a group of humans got a medic to the level that they could do that and went through and took out all of the cover. They just flattened every single box. Which unfortunately did lead to an injury because somebody slipped on one of the boxes, and so instead they said, okay, you gotta pile them up on the sides. But it meant there was no cover for the zombies. And that was incredibly helpful, and it was a good play by whoever decided to do that. Alright, I need to figure out which way is which on this battery. So, yeah. Cover got flattened very quickly. There was nowhere for the zombies to hide, which was very, very useful. Now, had there been a lot of PvP action, that would have been a negative thing. But by that point, it had been pretty much unofficially, universally agreed the humans were not going to attack each other. Now, they could. And like I said, that was something that was a concern early on, and something that we got credited by at least one person with being the reason there wasn't any. Remember, there isn't enough resources to go around. Now, there were plenty of resources, and once humans started dying, the lack of resources became less of a problem. But it was stated early on that there isn't enough resources for everyone, and that PvP, human versus human, is a perfectly legitimate part of this game. If a human tags another human with a blaster, if you get shot by a dart, you become wounded. Now, a human cannot kill a human, nor can they turn him into a Zed, but if you wound a human, remember, they have to take a knee, they can't move, they cannot use their blaster, which makes them just a sitting duck for any zombies that should come along. And so there was a concern that that might happen, that in the concern of there not being enough resources, humans might attack other humans and turn into a bloodbath real quick. And the real concern was, there would be a group of humans that decided to do that for fun right at the beginning of the game. That they would just go out of their way, just start tagging as many humans as they could and just leave them and just to be trolls. Which would have been a perfectly legitimate thing to do. It would have been a perfectly acceptable thing to do. It was within the game mechanic. It was part of the game that we all knew was a thing. So had a group of humans decided to do that, it would have been, a classic dick move, but an acceptable one, because that was the nature of the game. The whole point is that this is, a fight for resources, and so attacking other humans, even if you're just doing it for giggles, wouldn't have been cool. I wouldn't have considered it a cool thing. I wouldn't have liked it if someone had taken me out, but I would have accepted that that was, in fact, part of the game that we were playing. But I didn't want it to happen. I didn't want it to happen to my people. I didn't want it to happen to any people, because we're going to have enough problem with the zombies. We don't need to be shooting each other. But, how other people choose to play the game is entirely up to them. But I did endeavor to prevent it. And we did that by being helpful. So we would post up at one of the corners of the mall, because it was a big cross, like most malls are. And we would be defending the humans that were on the far side of it, and another group of humans would come up, and they'd see us all looking menacing and online and organized and communicating and all of this, and they'd get real nervous. Because, as soon as they came around the corner, we weren't sure if they were humans or zombies. It became real obvious real quick, because, they're carrying blasters, they're obviously humans. And they'd get real nervous, and there'd be that tense moment of them thinking to themselves, are we going to have to fight our way through these guys? And then we would say, no, move through, we'll cover you, go. Get objectives back there, move through. And there was just this incredible, you could see the relief in there. I was like, oh good, we don't have to be absolutely terrified for a whole 3 seconds. And they would push through, they'd get their objectives, they'd get back there. The humans on the back there were, got this backwards. Humans were allowed to help each other. If you unlocked a MacGuffin box, you could leave it unlocked for the next group, or you could lock it back up again if you felt like it. But all the humans were being very helpful to each other, so they're making sure that all the human groups that came back there got the MacGuffins they needed and got out, and then as soon as the last human group was out, we would move on to the next location and cover it, and so on and so forth. And so we very quickly established the idea that the humans are in fact helping each other, that you don't need to attack other humans, we're not after resources, we will make sure you can get them, go. And apparently it was noticed, and apparently it had a notable effect. I was wrong! I'm gonna have to drummel a little bit more, maybe. Did I just... I did it again! Words of Han Solo. This one goes there, that one goes there. Anyway, how true was it that we were the ones that determined whether or not the humans engaged? I couldn't tell you, but at least one other person that wasn't in our group believed that we had played at least a significant role in that, and I'm happy with that. That was our goal, and so the fact that at least one person attributed to us without even knowing that was the goal felt good. Felt like a win. There! Finally soldered it the right way. I make mistakes, especially when I'm talking. Okay, no, I don't need to drum anymore. Okay. Now, how did it work out? So we started moving, we got to the first couple of locations, and we made one classic error. And it was one of those you know, first time being at the event, first time this style of gameplay, didn't make the connection. Made a bit of a tactical blunder, which was that we went, or the group that we were with, went for the easy MacGuffins first. And that was a mistake. If you have a choice between going for the easy MacGuffins or the hard MacGuffins in an HVZ, always go for the hard MacGuffins first. Because the game is going to get harder. There are going to be more and more and more zombies as the game goes on. It is never going to get any easier. So you should do the hard MacGuffins first while there aren't a lot of zombies. Do the hard part of the game while the game is still easy. And it didn't occur to me either at the time because, like I said, my brain was fried. I was just there to hunt zombies. And I didn't recognize, wasn't really paying attention to, you know, I was just, okay, team that's actually going for MacGuffins, where are you going? We'll follow you and cover you, as opposed to actually giving good, sound tactical advice. Because, as I said, the mall was in a big cross, and there were two shorter sections of the cross, a medium-length section of the cross, and then a really long section of the cross. And some of them were really close to the human staging area or really close to the mod location, both of which were safe zones. And people went to those ones first because they were really easy to get to, really easy to ferry the MacGuffins from. The problem was that meant once there was a huge horde of zombies, we then needed to get to the long end of the hallway and get all the way back. And that was not going to be easy, or as we discovered, possible, with the kinds of super zombies that we were up against by that point. Or rather, not that it wasn't possible, but it was going to be very, very difficult. And a lot of humans went down early on. There was one group, a whole group got taken out by a single zombie, but that zombie couldn't actually turn them, or all but one of their people got taken out. They managed to get to us and asked for help, and we attempted to push up and save the humans. And as we were moving to that location, a group of zombies came up, and the guy's like, "That's my squad, they're already dead." So he just joined us as a rifleman and did an excellent job. I believe his name was Adam. And he stuck with us for the rest of the game, and I don't remember how long he lived, but he served with distinction. He did well. Don't know what happened, how his squad got taken out. I assume some zombie was lying in wait or come up behind him or something. Tagged four of them, and then left him for the Zeds. The night proceeded as you would expect. We started going for MacGuffins, humans started getting taken out, zombie numbers started growing. The zombies did eventually unlock the super zombie, the big super zombie. It was called the Flesh Beast. And it was an unstunnable zombie that was built into a wheeling cart. It's one of those little push carts where you sit in the cart and move it with your feet like you had in gym. It was that, and then it had a PVC frame built around it that had tentacles on it that other zombies could grab onto the tentacles, and while they were holding the tentacle, they couldn't be stunned unless you hit the little bell above the tentacle, and then they were knocked off, and you could take them out, and it was a cool MacGuffin. It was very slow moving, but there was no way to ever actually truly stop it. You could, however, if you had engineers, trap it behind a wall. Now, unfortunately, there were zombies that could take out walls, but I don't know that any of them were in play early on in the game because they didn't want to take out walls. They wanted walls put back up. Anyway, we did well. We got lots of MacGuffins. We started getting levels. We got our medic leveled up. We got ourselves leveled up. I managed to get to level 3, which let me have the equipment that I wanted, which was my FTL3 and a vest. So I could actually carry decent capacity blasters. I started out running an Alpha Trooper because an Elite Alpha Trooper falls into that 1-point category of, only takes 1 point. It's pump action. It's a blaster that has to be primed, and I brought 10-round magazines, And so, I mean, that was my starting line. Most of my squad, I think, started out with Alpha Troopers because they are still one of the best HVZ blasters that has ever been produced. And in this case, they fit the bill for what we needed for starting blasters, so worked out well. Anyway, the groups we were protecting started getting their MacGuffins. People started getting leveling up. There was a game pause for some reason. There was then another long game pause. We got lots of more leveling up. We had one guy who was originally attached to another squad, and then I think that squad got wiped out, and he joined us. He was running melee only, and so he was the one that kept gathering up all of the tokens for all of the zombies we were tagging, because we were not slowing down to pick up tokens. If we were moving, we were in a hurry, and we moved with a purpose. And fortunately, we had him running through, collecting all of the tokens, and then we'd get to, get back to the mod location and be like, okay, did anyone get any poker chips? And he'd reach into his pocket and bring out 30 of them or something. And so everyone in my squads were all getting leveled up repeatedly, almost entirely because of this one individual, who we then ended up, we put him in for human MVP, and he won. And deservedly so. Because he leveled 2 squads to level 3 basically by himself. One of the other beautiful things about it is there, like I said, there was a human safe zone in the food court. If you needed a break, if you needed a rest, if you just needed to escape a massive horde of zombies, you could get there and you were safe and out of play. You could get water, you could get food, you could take a rest, because like I said, the game was going, till 4 a.m., which is an exhausting amount of gameplay. And yeah, we got a couple of levels. We helped make sure MacGuffins were acquired. At one point, the Flesh Beast was activated, and my 2 squads got separated, which is never a good thing. Never split the party. But yeah, we pushed through. They got pushed back. They were able to retreat to the admin location, which is where the leveling up took place, which is also a safe zone, but they were then trapped in there by the Flesh Beast. We got back to the food court, regrouped, realized that we had their medic with us, so we had both medics, which was not good, because that meant if they got taken out, they didn't have a medic to get them back up again. And we were just getting ready to push there and relieve them, reconnect with them, when they came charging up. So they were able to break out. I don't know if the Flesh Beast moved on or what happened exactly, but they managed to break free and reconnect with us, and that was all well and good. There was then a major game pause. Oh, there was one incident that I feel bad about, and if the person that it happened to is watching this, I can only apologize. Came around a corner, and somebody with a melee weapon was hitting somebody. And not knowing which was which, I blasted him. Well, it turns out they were a human. I don't actually know if the person they were hitting was a zombie or if the person they were hitting was a human, but I tagged them, which of course put them into the wounded state. And our medic, I then realized I was a human. Oops, sorry. Medic called for our medic. Lance Corporal Wheels was our medic and did an amazing job. They are the only reason I survived. They saved my butt more times than I can remember. They came up and were healing him and got to, I think, 8 when a zombie with a long pool noodle reached around a corner and smacked the guy. So he died because I shot him, and I feel bad about that. I wouldn't be surprised if he told all his friends, I was doing great, and then Captain Xavier shot me. What a jerk. And he's not wrong. These things happen in the apocalypse. Mistakes get made. There was then another long game pause. I think they were resetting stuff. A lot of humans had gone down. There were a lot of zombies that needed to get processed. A lot of humans had leveled up, so there was a lot of humans that needed to get processed, and so they kind of put a pause on the game until it could all get done. All that could get taken care of. And they then unlocked everything. All the MacGuffin boxes were unlocked. Humans could use any equipment that they wanted. Zombies could use any and all upgrades that they wanted. Don't mind me, I'm trying to find, there it is, my shrink wrap. And so there was a whole lot of shuffling for that. Obviously, as everybody went, all the humans went back to the staging area and tooled themselves up with everything they could, every blaster they had, every magazine, every dart. Zombies went to the admin location and just loaded up on special abilities and MacGuffins and claws and noodles and whips and this, that, and everything. The group that we were working with, the Zombie Corps of Engineers, needed 2 more MacGuffins. There were 2 more items that they needed to get their hands on in order to have completed the primary mission. There was then a part 2. You had to acquire the MacGuffins and then you had to actually escape. And no one had gotten the primary objective yet, much less gotten to the escape objective. So we knew where we needed to go, and unfortunately, like I said, it was at the long end of the hallway, which was a tactical error on our part, not doing that part first and getting it out of the way so that we only had the short one that we could easily complete. We got one of them completed, got to the admin location, got it checked in, and then we had to make the long run. And this was, unfortunately, at the point that the zombies finally got organized. And the whole horde shows up, and we slowly get pushed down the hallway by this unstoppable horde of zombies. Now, I say unstoppable. It was unstoppable by us, but only because of choices we had made. It was not truly a game mechanic that had made them unstoppable, or it wasn't that they were truly unstoppable, it's that we were not equipped to stop them. There was a special zombie type that could put down a ring, a PVC hexagon-looking ring, and any zombie that had a foot in the ring was impervious to darts. Similar to how a medic can make a human impervious. But this was multiple zombies could have their foot in the ring, and they could then have whips and claws and whatever other special abilities they wanted that they could then use from the ring. Alright, I need to test this and make sure I did it right. Where's the battery? Now, you would think zombies being able to create, an impervious wall, essentially. Hey, I got it right. You can imagine what would happen. So they got in, they basically had enough of these rings to create a wall of rings all the way across the hallway of the mall. And then fill them with zombies, and how are we supposed to take them out? You would think, well, that's obviously a flaw. They made an unstoppable zombie mechanic. And yes and no, because they were immune to darts, but they could still be taken out by melee, and humans were allowed to have shields. So if we'd had enough people with long swords and shields, because remember, we could have anything we wanted at this point, we could have, hypothetically, punched a hole through that. But that would have required a lot more shields and melee than we had, and it would have required people who knew how to properly use them. Like if I'd had the old crew that used to do shield wall all day, every day, and we had been prepared for this, we might have been able to punch through that. And I'm not even saying we could have, but we might have been able. The mechanic existed to allow you to break through. Whether we could have practically pulled it off, yeah, I don't know. There were a lot of zombies, and we just slowly got pushed back down the hallway. Luckily, we had held at the end of the hallway for as long as we could, because we knew we needed to, and while we were holding the end of the hallway, apparently, one of the members of the Zombie Corps of Engineers got to the bucket, got the points, and then managed to get through before the zombie wall got formed. They just bolted through and ran straight for the admin center, and they got through. And then the wall closed up, and we got pushed back, and it was just a slow battle of attrition as we were slowly taken out and slowly pushed back and lost humans here and there. We created walls all the way across the mall by engineers to stop the flesh beast, because the flesh beast showed up and was relentlessly pursuing us. It was a fun long last stand, and every member of both of my squads lived to that. We didn't lose anyone up until that last push, and then as we were obviously doing rear guard, we started to fall to spitters and flesh beasts and all kinds of other stuff, but most of us went down to had some fairly epic deaths. It was glorious and fantastic, and I had a wonderful time. I put it down as the second best HVZ I've been to, or at least my second favorite HVZ that I've ever attended. And the reason that it's not the first was because Ragnarok Oktoberfest 2018 still holds that distinction, because at Rag 2018, we managed to achieve a human victory in a game that wasn't supposed to have a human victory condition. It wasn't supposed to be possible for the humans to win, but we managed to anyway. That's a whole different story and a glorious event. I hope Rag eventually happens again. Alright, we got that in. So then afterwards, there were awards, and that was something I wasn't expecting. I was expecting them just to announce them. No, they had medals and trophies, and it was really cool. And some of it was basically popularity contest, for lack of a better term. It was, who was the MVP? Give us your reasons, and then we will vote on them by cheering loudly, which is, always a dubious way to do it, but it works. And like I said, we submitted our guy who had been our melee guy who collected all of the chips, and then we out-yelled everybody else, so they won. But most of the awards were based on statistics, because they tracked all of that. They knew what human had leveled up the most, and that was the MVP human. Which zombie had gotten the most tags, which zombie had gotten the most assists. All of that was being tracked. It was being kept track of, and so they knew who had done what. And train. I bought this specifically to make soldering the board easier, and then completely forgot to use it. Tells you, see, this is what I get for talking while I'm supposed to be working. Anyway, by now, that extended mag release ought to have finished printing, so, right. You can close this up. So yeah, we got slowly pushed back, wiped out. Where was I? Yeah, we got slowly pushed back, wiped out, big last stand, very cool. Zombies eventually poured through, wiped us all out, it was lovely. And then, yeah, they gave out the awards, which were super cool. Trophies, medals, and it turned out the Zombie Corps of Engineers had managed to complete the primary mission. They had gotten the last MacGuffin, and they got someone through. And it turned out the other allied auxiliary squad that we were working with, that was being led by Grubster and the Goblin very nearly completed it. They had the last MacGuffin, but their person wasn't able to get through the line before it closed. They had a proton pack. They went charging through all barrels blazing, but they didn't make it through, unfortunately. But they got super, super close. And so the fact that the two squads that we had supported were the two, one completed it and one nearly completed it, that was what I wanted, and that was a win to me. Hindsight, what would I have done differently? Like I said, we definitely should have gone for the harder objectives first. The ones that were in the longest, corridors where, it's a death trap. Should have started with those and left the shortest, easiest one for last. Now, we might still have gotten cut off and wiped out, and we probably would have. Just that's kind of the nature of HVZ. Once the zombie horde starts gaining momentum, it's real hard to stop it. I love that they unlocked all abilities at the end. So zombies got to play whatever super zombie they really wanted to try. Humans got to use all of the cool equipment that they had brought. It was really a nice final push. It wasn't, exactly intended to be a last stand. It wasn't, required that this be a glorious last stand. It just ended up being a glorious last stand, and they gave us everything we needed to make it glorious. And I appreciate that. The people running this did just an amazing job in their ability to fix things on the fly, change things on the fly, improve things. The way they've got the game set up, the location, it's all really, really well done. I do have some advice, some ideas, some suggestions on how to improve the logistics, but some of them I don't know how possible it would be. A lot of them, it's a matter of resources, and I don't know if they have access to said resources. I'll be reaching out to them privately to discuss that and give my advice. All right. I'm gonna test this thing and see how it doth pew. Well, it's a little spicier than they had hoped, but there are ways of dealing with that. I'll reach out to them, let them see what they know. The high I hit was 148, so they were hoping for 100 to 120. So we're a scotch over. We're good for most Nerf wars that cap at 150, but for HVZ, it's a little noisy. A little noisy. A little spicy. Anyway, there you have it. That was my thoughts on Mall Mutation Madness Hardcore 3. Absolutely fabulous event. I absolutely will be attending next year, and we'll be going even more. Hopefully bringing more of my crew with me. Hopefully bring more auxiliary. We'll see how much they changed the game. The year before, it was 2 large human teams instead of 5-person squads. So who knows what they will change next year. I hope they keep it the same, personally, because that would allow us to actually, prepare for it and organize it. But then the downside be if we have time to prepare, how much of a mess can we cause? Honestly, I don't think there's any amount of prep and gear that we could bring that would break the game. The mod team was too good at changing things on the fly. They were on top of things. They were paying attention to human numbers, zombie numbers, how the game flow was going. They were just absolutely on top of all of it, which means we could really go all out and not risk imbalancing the game and causing a headache for the mods, which I appreciate because I like going all out. But I do worry that if I go too hard, that it's gonna, cause trouble. My cat is savaging a demolisher rocket. Because, well, it had it coming, I'm sure. Anyway, there's my Strife all modded up, and there's the story. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think of this format of Storytime with Captain Xavier. If I got too distracted with this, or if it's too distracting for you, or what have you, but that's what I felt like doing today, so I did it. Thank you for watching. Aha!